Welcome to my kitchen. It is a Sunday, and if there's something I love to do on Sundays, it's cook. Especially if I'm cooking with the saints, such as I'm doing today. And today we've got a great recipe. And the recipe that we're going to be cooking today is going to be minestrone soup. And I can't cook a soup recipe without thinking about my dear old dad, bless his heart, rest his soul. My dad, every time I'd take him out to dinner, it didn't matter what was on the recipe. Even before we got in the front door, he would just say, "I think I'll just have the soup." And he used to say that because he didn't like to spend a lot of money. And he usually knew the soup was something that was rather affordable on the menu. So the Cooking with the Saints cookbook it's a great book in that it highlights different recipes that correlate with various saints in the Catholic Church. And the recipe that I'm doing today, the minestrone, it makes 3 quarts. And the saint associated with this recipe, and I hope I get this name right, it's Saint Aloysius Gonzaga. And he was born in 1568 and he died in 1591. So they give a little bit about him. They say that Saint Gonzaga showed his extraordinary piety during his childhood, reciting numerous psalms and practicing many daily devotions. Although his noble family had other plans for him, he became a Jesuit priest inspired by accounts of Jesuit missionaries in India. In Rome, he entered the You're going to have to bear with me on these words. Novitiate, and came under the spiritual direction of St. Robert Bellarmine. St. Aloysius took his vows in 1587, the same year a plague broke out in Rome. With his fellow Jesuits, he tended to the sick and the dying in the streets and in the hospitals, washing and feeding them. Being in such close contact with plague victims, he contracted the disease and died at the age of 23. So that's the saint, Saint Gonzaga. And they go on to tell you a little bit about the recipe. It says, one of Italy's oldest dishes, the vegetable-rich minestrone soup, which may be embellished with meat, could predate the expansion of Rome into an empire. Such a soup was mentioned in Marcus Apicius' cookbook, De Ra Coquinaria, written in the 4th or 5th century AD. Through the ages, the basic recipe has remained fairly standard and includes onions, tomatoes, beans, and soup stock. There's no set or established recipe, however, for minestrone soup. Making minestrone really depends on what seasonal vegetables the cook had on hand. The chef suggests making this in large batches and freezing some to enjoy at other meal times. Only add the garnishes each time you plan to serve the soup. So I'm looking forward to this recipe, and I'm going to do as I do always, and that is to begin doing the recipe by showing you the ingredients in case you want to make this at home. All right, so let's take a look at the ingredients. Grab your pen and paper. There are the ingredients for the minestrone soup, beginning with 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 large carrots peeled and sliced, 2 stalks of celery sliced, 1 medium onion peeled and diced. Then you have 2 or 3 cloves of garlic peeled and minced, 1/4 head of white cabbage coarsely chopped. You have a pinch of dried basil or another dried herb, a 14-ounce can of cannellini or navy beans. I went with the cannellini. 1.5 to 2 quarts of filtered or regular water. I went with the filtered. And then you have a 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes. 1 cup of cubed butternut squash or sweet potatoes. And I actually opted for the butternut squash on this recipe. And then salt and fresh ground pepper to taste. 1 to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. A 1/2 cup of spinach or kale chopped for garnish. Fresh basil leaves. for garnish. Now I don't have the basil leaves out there, but perhaps next time I make this I'll have the basil. But then you have grated Parmesan cheese for garnish. So those are your ingredients, and let's get started. All right, as you can see, I've added the olive oil, 3 tablespoons to the stock pot here, and I'm going to go ahead now and add the celery and the onions and the carrots. You know, they say you are what you eat, and this would certainly probably be one of those recipes that Mom would smile upon, you know, if you were cooking this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cook for about 8 to 10 minutes until the onions become translucent, and that's what my dad would call a 50-cent word, translucent. I don't know why it was only worth 50 cents. Maybe with recent inflation, it's gone up a little bit to about 65 or 70 cents. But regardless, so we're gonna let this cook for the better part of. We'll let that cook for the better part of 8 minutes, and then we'll be back. Well, the carrots and the onion and the celery and the garlic cooked for another 5 minutes. And now I've added the cabbage, and I just asked Echo over there to set the timer for 5 minutes. So I turned the heat down a little bit. It was getting a little bit too hot, and I turned that down, and I'm sure it'll be just fine. But I added the cabbage, I should say, and we'll let this cook on a little bit of a lower heat for about 5 minutes, or for 5 minutes rather, I should say, and then we'll be right back. Well, the cabbage now cooked for 5 minutes, and what I'm going to do now is add the dry herbs, and I'm going to add a pinch of basil, and I'm just going to kind of spread it around there and then stir it in real well. I've got the basil. Now the next step is to add the beans. You can't think of minestrone without thinking of beans. So there's one 14-ounce can of cannelloni beans. And then I'm going to add the water, and that's 2 quarts of filtered water. So I'll add that into the mix right there. Look at that. Okay. Now the next thing to do is actually bring it to a boil over medium-high heat. So I will do that. I'll bring it to a boil. I probably could have used a little bit of a bigger pot, to be quite honest with you, but it'll probably boil down a little bit, and then I'll be able to add the squash and the tomato sauce. So we'll be back. Well, this came to a boil, and I turned it down, and now I'm going to add the tomatoes, and I think I might just have just enough room here. Oh boy, I might actually be overflowing it, but oh goodness gracious! Echo, stop. So there was the timer. Now I've got to add the half cup of the squash, so we'll add that, and hopefully it's not going to overflow, which I don't think it will. Boy, look at that, right up to the brim. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cook for another 10 or 15 minutes, and then I think it's, as the saying goes, soup's on. We will see. It certainly looks good. Well, will you look at that? It's nice when it turns out looking like the picture. And now I'm just going to add Oh, I'm gonna add some. I'm gonna add some salt to taste. So we will. I've got some sea salt that I'm adding here, and I'm gonna add some pepper as well, some freshly ground pepper. So we'll get that added in there. Oh, this looks wonderful. You know, it's nice when you spend some time making something and it turns out what appears to be as nice as this is. Now, I haven't tasted it yet, but I think it's going to get the second. That's good. That's really, really good. We will we will see, as the saying goes. I'll give it a little bit more salt. There you go. So we got the salt in there. Now I'm going to take this off. Now they tell you to cook it until the squash or the potato, the sweet potato, is soft but not mushy. And that I tasted it, and it is just that. It's not mushy. It's just nice and soft. So we'll get this on the table here. I'm going to remove it from the heat. And I'm going to add the lemon juice and the spinach. So I turn the heat off, and I'll grab the spinach. So there's your half a cup of spinach, and then it's going to ask for 1 to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So we will add the lemon juice, and appropriately I've got lemon juice from Sicilia, you can see. So we'll go with 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. There you go. All right. So now, you know, you've heard that saying, don't try this at home, but that wouldn't apply here. This is something that you definitely would want to try at home. Boy, that looks good. That looks really, really good. So I'm going to get it off the stove and into a bowl, and we'll give it a taste. Oh, wow. That looks really good. All right, now here comes my favorite part. This is always my favorite part. Well, actually, it's right up there with licking the bowl. You know, when you're making cake or something, and Mom lets you lick the bowl. You know, but this is you know, that aside, my mother would say, "Take your hat off at the table." And I'd be a smart aleck, and I'd say, "Well, Mom, technically I'm not at the table. I'm at the countertop." And right about then she might say, "Do you want to go to your room?" Something along those lines. And I'd say, "No, I want to have my soup." So, anyway. All right, folks. So you know how the saying goes, right? No. Not that saying. Not soup's on, okay? Soup is on, but that's not the saying I'm talking about. The saying I'm talking about is, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, bless us, O Lord, for these are gifts, for which I am about to receive through the bounty of Christ the Lord. Amen. All right, so here we go. Oh boy, it looks good. If it tastes as good as it looks, I'm in for a nice dinner. Ooh, I'll try to get a little bit of everything on this spoonful. This first spoonful, I got the squash and the carrot and the onion and the cabbage. I see a little tomato. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Mmm. Oh, that's good. That's really, really good. I'm not lying. It's really, really good. Oh, that's fantastic. All right, folks. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you make this recipe yourself. Oh, that tastes good too. And I'm having I'm having a little salad, soup and salad with a little bit of sourdough bread. What a nice way to start the week. Sunday night, having a nice dinner. So, folks, you gotta get this book. If you like to cook, even if you don't like to cook, this is really a wonderful book, Cooking with the Saints. So, we'll see what the next recipe is. Right now, I'm just gonna finish my soup and let you get on with making your own pot. So, have a have a great day and take care.